Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Real World Blockchain Podcast, brought to you by Web3 Enabler, the first and only Web3 payment solution in Salesforce, the world's #1 CRM. Today, I have my partners in crimes, Niles, Rebecca, and Zoe. Niles is the connoisseur of the blockchain industry, Rebecca is our UX expert, and of course, Zoe is our tech expert, and myself, I'll be the host. Hi, Niles. Hi, Rebecca. Hi, Zoe.
Hi.
Hi.
All right. Just as a reminder, everyone, this is not investment advice nor life advice. As always, we encourage you to do your own research and please share what you have learned in the comments section. We are going to talk about real use cases for the blockchain industry. So, first news of the day, guys. I read today that the crypto world is ready to take Bitcoin ETFs to the masses. Now it just needs the blessing of a longtime foe first, but to let you know what's happening, basically a Bitcoin-related ETF has been released, and now J.P. Morgan Chase and Goldman Sachs are among the giant banks that have offered to help some of these ETFs to and these funds to basically be accessible to the public. So that's a kind of reconciliation, and I'd like to know what you guys think about that.
Yeah, I think that what's interesting is we have the Winklevoss twins that already tried this long back, a couple years ago.
Indeed.
And you might remember them from Facebook. It was denied. And now all of a sudden we have these giants such as JP Morgan that are hopping in, and Jamie Dimon, who already booed Bitcoin, but now is on board. And this is something that's interesting because these institutions are interested in blockchain. And now we have somebody with a lot of money. And I think BlackRock announced that they're going to go and put $10 million as a seed fund with their first ETF. And that's a lot of money for a company that is now interested in allowing people in like traditional like financial institutions to get in on the action.
For our audience, for those of you who don't trade stocks or who don't know what ETFs are, it stands for exchange traded funds. So basically, it's a financial product that you can buy just like a stock, but it's much simpler for the people who are not trained in the subtle arts of finance and who don't know the arcanes of it. And you can do that as if you were trading a stock, but it's much easier and it's a bit better against uncertainty because usually it's related to multiple assets and not only one. So usually it has many benefits, just like trading stocks, but it's way easier for beginners and for commoners to use that. It's a safer financial products to be very simple about it. Okay, Zoe and Rebecca, what do you think about it?
Yeah. Honestly, I think this is a great way for a newcomer to kind of like dip their toes in the water, right? It reduces the risk of handling and storing cryptocurrency. I remember a story from a few years ago of a guy named Jace Howells. Do you guys remember that? Where he had like 8,000 Bitcoin in her wallet and lost it
Yeah.
and put out like a bounty for $11 million, I think it was, or pounds, just for someone to help him find this wallet, right? So for a newcomer, that's a huge risk. With the ETF, you're now going to have the ability to invest in the product without necessarily having that technical knowledge. So from a user's perspective, we're removing some of those risks and making it more accessible. So I'm really excited to see what comes of it.
Uh,
Yeah, I
Zoe?
definitely think it'll take care of some of the aversion to getting involved due to risk aversion, healthy risk aversion, which is great for mainstream adoption. And yeah, and for those of you who don't remember, there was at least one fake ETF out there,
Yeah.
and that obviously, the fact that kind of falsely increased the valuation for a little while, that just says a lot about how excited people are for the opportunity of an ETF.
Yeah, and since Bitcoin is still it's the biggest crypto market at the moment, but it's still quite a small one. So that means that any little public announcement can make it surge up or or fall down very easily. So usually people get excited about that, and since it's already a bit high, I would be very curious I'll be very curious to see what it becomes in 6 months. Maybe some people are predicting very high values. Remember, listeners, this is not the purpose of this podcast, but understand that it's a volatile market. And maybe
I would
you,
just like to,
yeah,
Gautier, if I could, just quickly note that this is a USA announcement
yeah.
for possible ETFs, where there are other countries that already have exchange traded funds that are pegged to Bitcoin.
Mm.
And it's interesting, and I would love to hear other people's thoughts
Mm.
on what does it mean when other countries, such as Canada, have a spot Bitcoin ETF, and like, why does the US matter?
Mm.
We're a
Oh,
global currency.
I mean, well, the U.S. has like 20 million Americans own cryptocurrency in the US. So I think like we're in the top 5 countries in the world that are using or owning cryptocurrency. So I think the fact that the US is willing to kind of take that step, it's huge for the space, right? Um, think about think about what would happen if that number doubled just because people were now willing to test the waters a little bit, get more comfortable with Bitcoin, and then potentially move on and be like, okay, I'm ready to own my own crypto. So it's a nice little entry.
And there are many heavy hitters in this Bitcoin ETF, and one of the interesting ones. 4 days ago, January 5, Van Eck, which is quite a quite a huge fund. I'm just reading the tweet. They said we're not Bitcoin tourists at Van Eck. We're in it for the long haul. That's why we made an initial $10K donation and signed a pledge to donate 5% of our Bitcoin ETF profits, if approved, to support Bitcoin core devs at Bitcoin Brink for at least 10 years. So that's quite interesting because that means that they're really also fueling the whole ecosystem. And I think we can hope about other people doing the same. And it's interesting to see how private funds are helping the open source ecosystem. And that means that this is going to be good for businesses who need stronger use cases and bigger communities of people who can maintain this ecosystem and basically provide solid applications for their business.
Absolutely. And I think that's really interesting where Vanek is looking at this and pledging an amount of dollars to go and actually help develop, where we're not going to go and see other companies say like, okay, I want to go and take the profits and increase Apple. I'm not going to go increase Windows. I'm not going to go and create like a fund to go and expand Visa. These are all platforms.
Mm-hmm.
But Bitcoin, as something that is decentralized and for the people, is something that like these companies are happy to go and actually contribute to.
Mm. Like that.
Also, well, I'd like to have Zoe's advice on one thing because here that's interesting. We see people funding something that was open source, but at the same time, there are people saying, "Yeah, guys, there is no free cheese in a mousetrap." So basically, some people no, but the ethical debate is real because some people said, "Okay, guys, you are basically paying off developers to influence the direction of Bitcoin."
Mhm.
Some people are saying, "Yeah, that's
Wait,
why
why is
we."
that wrong?
What? Sorry.
Why is that wrong?
Well, it's always the problem. The problem is always where's what's the direction? That's the thing. Basically, every time I'm paying for something, let's say there's a conflict of interest because you don't buy the hand that feeds you. So some people are going to say, oh, let's have 100% self-funded blockchains such as Decred, for example. Some people are going to say you should donate money to the Satoshi Act Fund, for example, to defend Bitcoin from overzealous politicians and funds. Maybe, I don't know, but that's interesting. What do you think about this weird marriage between open source sectors where people are doing stuff for free and for the sake of the community, and at the same time private funds? Because Zoe, I know you've been using that tech for quite a long time.
Yeah, so a lot of the times it allows the top talent to really full on contribute rather than try to make time where they don't necessarily have time to commit to quality. And also it's fair to them, and especially in this economy. There, I've seen top tier engineers lose their jobs based on how the corporate engineering world is now. And so having them be able to allocate really full on allocate their energy to this is important. And open source, of course, definitely contributes to transparency. So I think it's great to see funding allocated toward that and support.
Okay, so we'll see. Basically, we'll see how the money go. We'll see what the direction is, and we'll see if there what's the legal enforcement, or what the conditions are regarding this donation. And it's interesting to see some people already commenting and saying basically, yeah, but boomer buyers who are your customers, who are Vanex customers, they do not care about that. They're not crypto enthusiasts. They just want to save their retirement funds. So maybe the announcement is more for the community and for the businesses, but for all our listeners who are considering implementing Bitcoin payments in their methods of payments for their customers, that's typically a good sign that Bitcoin is more mainstream than ever.
Yeah, and I would like to just quickly add that once these are added to an ETF, like Bitcoin, BTC, that is locked up in general for a certain amount of time within the exchange traded fund, the ETF, and an institution has to release or buy, which means that now all of a sudden we have gigantic players in the market that were not allowed before. And it's not going to necessarily be, if we think of Bitcoin as a store of value, being something that you or I are going to be able to compete with. It's BlackRock. They are going to be using like JP Morgan. They're going to be using like Goldman Sachs, massive players. And we're not talking about millions of dollars. We're going to be talking about billions of dollars. And if we think about the market cap of above $1 trillion of total crypto, that doesn't even scrape what is Apple, what is Microsoft, single companies that are primarily focused on a single market. And now all of a sudden we're opening up an entire financial institution that is going to exceed those numbers.
So this was the news from the finance sector, but there's another one here, and there's another news I want to talk to you guys about. And so actually that's two news wrapped in one, but that's quite the same topic on the B2C side. And small B2B businesses. So why am I putting these together? For me, there's a huge difference between huge B2B businesses and institutions and tiny B2B businesses. Rebecca, you're an expert in marketing, so you know that. Usually you don't market huge businesses the same way you market small businesses, but basically B2C and small B2B could be sold the same way. With the same tactics and the same statistics and so on. So that's a good sign as well. And so the stat that I read yesterday is that in-person businesses accepting Bitcoin nearly tripled in 2023. So the number of in-person merchants, so small businesses who accept Bitcoin, has tripled in the past year, and the data comes from BTC Map. So currently, the number is around over 6,000 vendors that accept Bitcoin around the world. And interestingly, for our industry, because at Web3 enabler we do that quite a lot, many of them are located in Latin America, for example, which means that there are many vendors who are already using that as a commodity and as a payment means. So, what do you guys think about that news?
That's awesome. I love to see that. That's so exciting, and um, I think for me it makes a lot of sense that countries in Latin America or countries who are going through like financial struggles with their currency would be the first ones to adopt it, right? Because then now you have access to some financial products that you didn't have access to before due to your own country's financial situation. And I'm from Venezuela, so this is very close to my heart. But I think what really excites me about this news is that we're seeing more businesses, more vendors offer Bitcoin payments worldwide, regardless of what's happening to the price of Bitcoin, right? And to me, that signals that we see the potential in Bitcoin long term, on cryptocurrency long term. We know that it's here to stay. We know that there's so much value in it because otherwise it would have died when the price went down, and it didn't.
Yes.
Well, that's really exciting.
I saw a guy online telling me one like a few years ago, yeah, but don't worry, one Bitcoin is still equal one Bitcoin. It's still equal one Bitcoin. So for the viewers, I'm sharing the map, the BTC map, and of course it's not a complete one because there are so many of these users that are not reported on the map. But for example, Colombia and Venezuela, 253 vendors reported. Argentina, 61. Cape Town, South Africa, 204. And Joburg in South Africa, 293. Philippines, 340. Japan, only 18. France. Oh, my country doesn't have doesn't have any, but I'm pretty sure that's underreported because I know many vendors in France as well. So that means that this map is not even. It's just skimming the surface, so that's it's even a better news. Portugal, which is very crypto friendly, 360. UK 360, and I'm not even mentioning Mexico, Guatemala. Guatemala 749 vendors listed. So that's quite it's quite a good news. And Rebecca, have you been to Venezuela in the recent years?
So I went before COVID. I haven't been back since COVID, but my mom, she just got back. And but I'll say last time I was there, I noticed something really interesting happening in terms of payments.
Yes.
Um, so the inflation is, I think at that point it was like 3,000. So this was like
Yeah.
maybe 4 or 5 years. It was like 3,000 was the inflation. But businesses were only accepting um, dollars.
Of course.
Everywhere you want, you could only pay with dollars, which is this was the very first time I had seen this traveling back, and I noticed so many advertisements for cryptocurrency on the highway, on billboards, on the side of the streets, everywhere. And there was a big push from the country um, for Petro, which I think was the coin they were trying to push. I think in the end that didn't work out for many reasons. But right, exactly. So, but I saw so many advertisements for it, and I'm not as familiar right now with what's going on, whether people are using it more or less. But at that time, I thought it was just interesting to see how much information was available compared to what we see here in America, right?
Quite interesting. So that reminds me every anecdote I've heard from people coming from or traveling to a country where there's a huge level of inflation. Usually, when inflation is very high, people are resorting to using foreign currencies or these days bitcoins. Uh, and how is it going in New York, Zoe? Vendors and Bitcoin. Did you already experience that, or? Not yet.
I've experienced a few on a small scale, and I was glad to see that. Very small kind of boutique ones. I haven't seen any lately, but maybe just because of where I've been, because again, the stats probably imply that there are, an increasing amount. But it's very exciting. I think it's where we need to be, and we're going to see more of this moving forward. Just going to increase from here, which is good.
In in Paris, we have a whole district. Well, not a like a set of blocks and like 10 blocks or something where everyone pays in Bitcoin. So,
I love that.
but if you guys come to Paris, I'll definitely show you around. All right,
I'm gonna hold you to that, Gautier,
with pleasure.
because like I find it very interesting that a lot of this used to be purely online companies, such as like Overstock. You're able to go and pay within cryptocurrencies, and
Yes.
now we're seeing companies on the corner store accepting. Maybe it's not necessarily Bitcoin, but it might be Litecoin. It might be Ethereum. It might even be like I went and bought a hoagie, which is like a sandwich from a vendor, and like that was with Dogecoin.
Well,
And now all of a sudden, people they want it.
you're talking about buying a sandwich, but I happen to have a restaurant that I resold last year, and just after the COVID crisis in 2020, one day, a guy came and, oh shit, I lost my wallet. He thought he had his wallet and he had already eaten at his table, and the guy said, "You don't accept cryptocurrencies, do you?" And he was jokingly saying that, and I told him, "Yeah, why not? Which, yeah, I take your word, no problem." And basically, the guy paid in Dogecoin, and
Nice.
the guy basically came very often, and then every time paid in Dogecoin. So that was quite fun. Actually, it happens, and I've seen that in the Balkans very often. Notably, when I was working for the Liberland Project, people in Serbia and Croatia, in some places, use that a lot. So that's quite interesting. And you were talking about online business, Niles. That's another news. I told you guys it's a bit wrapped in the first one, but have you heard about Mercari or Mercari? I don't know how you pronounce that. It doesn't sound Japanese at all, but it's a Japan e-commerce giant. So have you heard about it?
So them not specifically. I know that Stripe is also allowing vendors to accept crypto,
Mm-hmm.
which is very exciting. And I think that it allows people just open up other avenues where if I'm holding a certain token or a coin, this is something I can use it for. And now all of a sudden, there's a reason to actually send it around versus just stacking it in the wallet.
So here we have the huge giant in Japan, Mercari. They are basically selling secondhand goods. It's a marketplace, and they have in-app Bitcoin exchange, and on top of that, they have Bitcoin payment supported. Now it's enabled, so it's a digital flea market basically, and they have something like 20 million plus monthly users. So it's quite big, and they're launching also their own blockchain. Well, not their own blockchain, but their own platform, and they're going to call it the Merca coin or the Mercoin. Basically, it's their Tokyo-based blockchain subsidiary in order to support these payments, and the prices are going to be still displayed in Japanese yen. But basically, users in the app will be able to make payments with their bitcoins and just do that smoothly and connecting that to their own wallet. So, what do you guys think about that last news?
Yeah, that's super cool. I think, the more we can normalize cryptocurrency, using cryptocurrency, um, the more we're gonna kind of move towards like that mainstream adoption, right? So you have big companies like this who are coming in and saying, "Hey, we'll accept it. That's amazing. That's great." And we saw Shopify also accepts crypto, WooCommerce also, right? So like more
Yeah.
and more businesses are um, taking Bitcoin payments, and the more that we can get on board, the better.
Wonderful. All right. Any last word or comment before we wrap this episode up?
I'm just really excited that Rebecca is able to join us. Hope to see you in the future here. And I think that we're doing great. I appreciate it, Gautier.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you, listeners, for your attention. This was Real World Blockchain, a podcast dedicated to use cases in the cryptocurrency sector, notably for businesses, brought to you by Web3 Enabler, the first and only Web3 payment solution in Salesforce. This was Niall Smith, Rebecca Kaplan, Zoe Brederman, and yours truly, Gautier Lamotte. Please like, share, and subscribe, yada, 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 and have fun until the next episode. Bye, everyone.
Awesome.
Bye.